Because the question is, how many countries should we have in the world? What's the ideal number of countries? Well, the ideal number of countries for the libertarian is 7 billion. And we got 7 billion people, so we should have 7 billion countries because each of us should be sovereigns. That's the ideal. So is breaking up Canada into two parts moving towards 7 billion or away from it? Obviously moving towards. So we have to favor separation and secession wherever we can. So I'm sort of a block, BLOC. Another issue, well, there are several issues that are very complicated, like abortion, and different libertarians have different views on that. I have my own view on that, and I can only say for it that I follow rigidly the non-aggression principle and property rights. Another one is immigration, which I think is on the list, and maybe we'll get to it later. And I think I've had my five.
Okay, so I'm very happy that Walter spoke before me, because it does give some material to criticize. I might criticize Jan also. Let me say that first that I'm sure that I agree with everybody here, including Walter, more than I disagree with 99% of mankind. And some of the ideas that Walter has defended, I'm tempted to defend often when I discuss with statists or with ordinary people. And when I was younger, like Walter, I believed in natural law and all this sort of thing. So I think I can, well, and actually, I've introduced the whole French public to the ideas of Murray Rothbard, including being the co-translator of Murray Rothbard's The Ethics of Liberty in French. Now, I'm a bit of a contrarian, so I'm going to argue against some of the things that. If anybody wants to say something and wants me to argue against it, I'm pretty willing to do it. But more than this, more than being a contrarian, I think I'm basically agnostic as far as deep philosophical principles are concerned. And I am agnostic if only because during the past 2,500 years, nobody has agreed on these. And you've had some of the most brilliant people of mankind who have been arguing about the foundations of morality or politics, and who haven't agreed with this. So I'm not sure we can today agree with what these principles are. For me, so I'm a rather ecumenical sort of libertarian. I think that anybody who has individual liberty, as his first value, is a libertarian. Whatever is his reasons or his foundations for believing that individual liberty is the first value. My own thinking, and we can get into this later, and I will probably get into this in my further talks today. My main thinking is that individual liberty is valuable because it allows many people with different preferences to live peacefully together and be prosperous together. So it's some people would probably say it's utilitarian. I would disagree with this because utilitarian can mean lots of things, and I think that some of our libertarian friends tend to use scapegoats like utilitarianism or things like cardinal utility, as meaning some things that are bad. And when they want to argue against something, they say it's just utilitarian or it's cardinal utility. So another way to say the same thing is that, as Hayek pointed out, and as is at the basis of modern scientific inquiry, it's easier to eliminate error than to find the truth. And actually, the only way to find the truth is to slowly eliminate error over time. And similarly, I think it's easier to identify tyranny or the absence of liberty as it is to identify the presence of liberty. We might, among us, disagree on what liberty is, but probably when we see a tyrant or a little tyrant or a half tyrant, we will all agree that it is contrary to individual liberty. And I think it is not only defendable to do this, but I think it's the only way we can proceed epistemologically by eliminating error. Okay, which leads me, to discuss a few of the things. And again, I'm very grateful to Walter for having talked before me, because I can actually put a face on what I would be arguing against. And again, often, I use parts of these arguments with people who are not of our persuasions, but only part because basically I don't think that they are defendable. Like the non-aggression principle. I think the non-aggression principle, is a nice way perhaps to summarize our ideas. Perhaps it is a nice way to bring people to get interested in libertarianism, but I don't think it's defendable. You can only defend the non-aggression principle based on prior property rights, as Walter very brilliantly argued. The political problem there is that you can only define property rights with reference to non-aggression, because whatever is your property is whatever you have acquired without aggression. So aggression is defined in terms of property, and property is defined in terms of aggression. So you have a very nice circular reasoning there, which does not necessarily mean
which
that
I avoid, by the way.
Okay.
Reasoning? Unlike Walter.
Okay. I would have other things to do with this, but we can come back to this. A symptom of this is that people who favor the non-libertarian principle, when they say that you can do anything except for force, which is related to the non-aggression principle, but they immediately add or fraud. Because obviously there's lots of things that are not covered by force, which then they bring this general category, which is fraud, into this. And once you bring fraud into this, you haven't said much, right? Because what is fraud? Right? There is a very wide margin between what is clearly non-fraud and what is clearly fraud. Right? You meet a charming woman, like there are a few in this room, and you try to flirt them, by saying some things about you. And of course, you exaggerate what you can do, and you play down your faults. Is that fraud? Fraud? Well, perhaps it's fraud. Perhaps it's not fraud. So lots of things we don't know whether it's fraud or not. Right? Or you failed your critical vitae, and you just don't mention, in red, the doubly underline, between 2000 and 2002, I did nothing. You are not going to do this. You're just going to cross that line. Is this fraud? It's not fraud. We don't know. So, I think we have to be, very agnostic towards, these broad general principles that are supposed to underline all libertarian ideas. It's the same with the principle of homesteading. I think it's a very nice principle, and contrary to many of the other philosophical principles, there is probably some biological hardwired foundations in homesteading, which is in the first occupant principle. There is an economist whom probably Walter knows, whose name is Robert Sugden, who wrote a book called The Economics of Rights, Cooperation and Welfare, who argues that much of morality comes from the first occupant principle. First occupant principle, saying that basically if the first one who gets there, gets it. And why would that be the case? It's because over the hundreds of thousands of years of devotion of mankind, anybody who would not have followed this principle would have got into constant fights with people who were the first occupant, actually. And these people would have been killed and would not have transmitted their genes, including the genes that tend to bring you to follow the first occupant principle. So I think that the homesteading idea is a good idea. It might be the only, quote, natural law, unquote, libertarian idea, which does have some real natural law foundation, which is in biology, in the biological hardwiring of man. I would tend to say that since we don't really know what are the foundations of liberty, or since there are many which might not be consistent, the basic principle should be like Anthony de Jazzy says, just until proof of the contrary, let liberty prevail. if there are problems, then we can discuss. But this would already be a big improvement. So I probably said, I'm sorry to have taken you as a scapegoat, Walter. Well, I could say a few things about scapegoats also, but let me forget it.
I gather we didn't have 5 minutes each.
Am I much over? Yes, I'm 10 minutes. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, that's my point.